Welcome back. And we're going to look this evening with you at the age that we are entering in and quite properly are fairly deep in the age of Aquarius. It's interesting when you stop and think of the implications of the universe, cosmos, and then you have Bibles, dark sayings, hidden meanings, scriptures in them that no one knows where they came from, who wrote them, so forth. I was reading the other day, somebody handed me something, and it was, I don't know, about 35 different versions of the Bible that are known, and all different and so forth. But there are some basic principles, symbolisms. We were talking about this morning in Exodus is tied in with the idea of Aquarius to a certain extent, because what we're talking about in Exodus was the Passover. And we've made such a religious hodgepodge out of the Passover. And actually what the Passover simply is a Passover from winter to spring. That's all it is. There's nothing else. We have churches and they put, purple drapes on statues and people kneel and other people go struggling and carrying crosses around. And the Passover is the movement from the sun from winter to spring. And that's why we were looking this morning, that's why the lamb is sacrificed. Because when the sun, in its movement through the zodiac, consumes Aries, which is the lamb or the ram, then spring comes. And then you have summer. So basically, the lamb must be sacrificed so the Passover can take place. That's all it is. It's astronomy. The whole thing's astronomy. And we made it into this religious nightmare. And out of this, the Passover, they come Easter and all of this stuff. And basically, instead of learning this at a church, it would have been much more practical to learn it in a planetarium. Because this is what it is. There's no other reason to kill the lamb other than to demonstrate the symbolism of the sun consuming Aries and then summer coming. That's it. And of course, that has a tremendous effect inside of us, because inside of the human being, down at the lower part of the body, which is the solar plexus, the sun energy of the body rises up to consume the pineal or pineal gland, and it activates the same thing as the sun in the sky consuming Aries. So it's astronomy. It's astronomical, astrological, cosmological, and then you run into this thing called Aquarius. Aquarius. People in Christian circles are scared to death of the word. They wouldn't dare have the song sung in their church. They're scared because it's part of the zodiac, which is, as I've said many times, like being afraid of February. Why would you? You wouldn't be afraid of February. You wouldn't be afraid of March. You wouldn't be afraid of August. Well, then why should you be afraid of Aquarius? Aquarius is simply a season of the universe in the same way that March is a season of the year on the earth. That's all. Cosmic year, zodiacal year, Aquarius. Earthly year, March, February, but it's the same thing. We create things to be afraid of, and they're simply normal things of nature. So it would probably be a good idea to look at Aquarius and stop and try to think what happens in Aquarius. For instance, what happens in August? It's hot. Thunderstorms. Think of all the things. Thunder, lightning, hot. What happens in February? Snow, ice, cold, and all of these things have effects on the way you live. What happens in April? It starts to warm up, and all of these different things. Each month is a little different. Well, those months only last 30 days. This thing lasts 2,600 years. One of the 12 months of the cosmos lasts 2,600 years. But each one is distinctive. In other words, just as the climate is different and your lifestyle changes in the month of the year, the climate is different, your lifestyle changes in the month of the zodiac. And Aquarius is upon you now. Most people are living in Aquarius and have no idea. It would be like living in February and wearing shorts or in a bathing suit or a bikini and running around in February. Well, that's silly. Well, isn't it equally as silly to run around in Aquarius and have no idea, what implications this has for us as people? Where can we understand? Where can we get some information? Well, the only way you can get information is from ancient people who tracking the attitudes of people for thousands of years as to how they differed in differing, zodiacal signs and the influences of the zodiac. And that's all I can offer you because, But anyhow, Aquarius, through ancient times, is known to foster the spirit of rebellion. The spirit of rebellion is a sign of consciousness. It can, of course, be antisocial behavior, and that's part of it. Can be somewhat violent, and basically that is necessary because what it does, it comes up against the traditional competitive mind systems of Pisces and Taurus and so forth, and then sets to overthrow them and bring them down. The Pisces and Taurus are signs which foster community and basically competitiveness and so forth. When you get into Aquarius, you move into a sign which fosters the individual, the thought, the life pattern of the individual. There is a fulfilling, an exodus from control of the system, religion, and government to control by the self, individual self. And what you'll see, and you'll begin to see it here, and you see it now all over the place, you're finding people are going to, have different Eastern types of things done to them, or prayers or chants, and they're going up into ashrams and getting into Buddhist things and so forth and so on, because there's an exodus from organized religion. And the reason there's an exodus for organized religion is because organized religion has fulfilled its function. Organized religion's function, basically, in the human psyche, was to set forth the symbols that we would act out and try to learn what they meant so we could move on and acquaint ourselves with the truth that these things represented. What did the Apostle Paul says in Hebrews chapter 6, verse 1? Leaving the principles of the doctrines of Christ, let's go on to perfection. And that's basically what Aquarius does. It challenges you to move away from all of the traditional things that you've been involved in and then move into a whole new individual realm where you're going to be accountable unto yourself. What should we see when the sun is in the sign of man? That with the man with the pitcher of water. What should we see? Basically, as the ancients put it, man will seek within his own heart for the truth that he has sought in vain outside of himself. We had a good crowd this morning. We talked about things, I think, somewhat inspired, and I had several people stop me and say that, the words that flowed were obviously from some cosmic entity which was conveying a truth, and the truth was the escape from the control of the left side in the system to the freedom of the promised land of the right side, and basically it would be fostered in the time of Aquarius, because that's what Aquarius will do. Aquarius will bring down the old system so that you'll be free to pursue the new. And it is a system which primes itself on the individual. In Luke 11:52, Jesus Christ says, you take away the key of knowledge because you don't enter within yourself. And of course, that's again homing in on the individual. It's always difficult for me to understand how religious people cannot put two and two together. They really can. But the point is they can't admit to it for the fact that their entire traditional concept is at stake. Here's Jesus Christ saying, the kingdom of God is within you. The sign Aquarius is the sign of the individual, and Jesus' prophecy of Passover is when you see the man with the pitcher of water. I mean, how is it so hard to understand that this thing is a cosmic event. You know, how could you have God if it wasn't a cosmic event? What will be the sense of it? What are we sitting here? Where is it going to come from? Pittsburgh? It has to come from a cosmic event, or it doesn't make any sense. And here's the truth. The second coming of man, the Son of Man, is Aquarius, and it is accompanied by the force, the power, the controlling influence of that which is known as heaven in Greek, that which is known as the coming of the Son of Man, that which you know as the dominating planet of Aquarius, which is Uranus. Uranus. And that's really the power that is displayed in Aquarius, is when Uranus makes its power felt in the scheme of things. So where do we find this? What does Jesus say? What do we understand about Passover? What do we understand about Aquarius? Jesus says in Luke 22:10, when you see the man with the pitcher of water, enter into the house, and he will show you a large upper room furnished. And basically what's being said is, in the time of Aquarius, people will enter into themselves. You don't have to be a rocket scientist, you don't have to have gone to Princeton or MIT or anything else to say to yourself, is this the time of Aquarius? Yes. Are people entering within themselves? You can't help but see it every time you turn a channel. People are meditating, doctors are practicing holistic medicine, they have meditation rooms in hospitals. Why? Because people are entering within themselves. Why? Because it is the time of the pitcher of water. Isn't that what he says in the Bible? I had a letter from a guy, and I wrote him, I says, this is Aquarius. He wrote back, says, that's ridiculous. He saw the man with the pitcher of water, and this was a code so where the people would know to go into what house. But you can prove that biblically that did not happen because men simply didn't carry pitchers of water in those days. It was a disgrace. Women carried pitchers of water. But anyhow, even to get into an argument about that is silly. What is basically the aspect of Aquarius that you and I would say we're experiencing now and will experience? What has been a mystery will be revealed as the consciousness of man is enlightened. I had one person come up to me this morning, I had 5 saying they are seeing things that fly out of this book and out of this story of Exodus that they never even conceived could be possible in the past. You begin to understand what these things mean. I don't know whether it was Tom Benson, I think it was. He couldn't wait to tell me that he was in the parking lot at the ShopRite shopping center and drove by the health food store and slammed on the brakes of his car. There was a sign on the front door of the health food store saying, "We have melatonin." Wow. Yeah, melatonin. So now they're selling it in stores and advertising it. How long ago was it when we first understood that melatonin was secreted by the pineal gland of the brain? Who knew? That's a very interesting thing, too, because that pineal or pineal gland of the brain is the single eye in which Jesus said, practice the single eye, and your body will be filled with light. And among other properties, melatonin is a skin lightener. So, it fulfills itself in the prophecies of the Scripture, and then it starts to fulfill itself in the everyday lives of people. Why is melatonin important today? Because it's secreted by the pineal gland or the pineal gland of the brain. Why is the pineal gland of the brain important? Because it is the symbol of Aries in the brain, and that means it is consumed by the sun or the sacrifice lamb of Passover. Why is Passover? Because we are passing over into the new age of Aquarius, and it all fits and all the pieces fit together to the point where melatonin, which is secreted by the pineal gland, is now being advertised on the doors of health food stores. We have melatonin. Scientific knowledge, I think, and this is, Albert, I think this is a point that you feel good about, and I know I do, I feel good about. Scientific knowledge will prove the New Age spiritual energy. Not the New Age hocus pocus stuff, which, people are getting, I believe, too involved in. But the New Age, the universe, nature, which we understand by the rhythm of the universe and the rhythm of the planets and the zodiacal signs. What will also happen is what is happening in our spiritual lives. Things, not that we're just developing new things to believe in, but we're seeing things manifest themselves so that we understand. In John 8:32, the Bible says, you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. That's what this is all about. Looking around the world, and I know there are struggles going on all over the place, and there are people who don't understand and are blowing things up, but the movement has been made. The Soviet Union was eliminated. The wall came tumbling down, gone, the Berlin Wall. Nelson Mandela not only got out of jail, he became the president of South Africa. The entire concept, just take South Africa. If you think of nothing else, take that. What in God's name could have done anything like that? The entire South African apartheid thing was destroyed. And the man who was in jail chipping rocks behind is the president. How is this? Because this is rebellion. This is individuality. It turns everything and it tears down all of these tremendous things which have been imprisoning people in their minds as individuals and in the systems of government. So all of this is happening all over the world. I mean, if there's nothing else to prove it, the Protestants and the Catholics signed a truce in Ireland. That's bizarre. Why? Something infects that which is the aggressive mind to look for a different way. The people who have been, I was talking to somebody at lunch today, and we were discussing, it's not people that shoot each other. Several men sit in this headquarters here, and a couple of guys sit in this headquarters here, and they say, let's have a war, and then they get thousands of people shooting each other, and they're still sitting back in their places talking about it. But now something is happening to the minds of the people sitting here and the minds of the people sitting here. Their minds are being changed by something, and they're starting to shake hands with one another. And all you have to do is get two guys like Saddam Hussein and George Bush to shake hands with one another, and that's the end of the killing. It's all over. You don't have to worry about it, because the people that are killing each other don't even know each other. They're not mad at one another. They're just killing each other because these two guys said to do it. So then Aquarius simply has to touch them. It's just like in your house, whoever is causing the trouble, all it has to do is infect the mind of that one person, and everything becomes calm and everything changes. And that's the beautiful part of all this. The prophecy then of Aquarius is placed and contained within the power of renewed thought and mental healing. And it is a fulfillment of Jehoshua, the Christ Jesus, who taught the kingdom is within you. That means the power of the universe is within people. And as it comes to life and resurrects itself, it can change things, and it will change things. I mean, dramatically change things. Dramatically change things. I'll tell you something. You are seeing an infection. Let's take the word back, not an infection. Let's say a movement of this Aquarian revolution in this country, right? In very subtle, very gentle, silly little ways. But if you read your paper or turn your TV on, you'll see in some key cities in the United States, now this is during election time, I don't know when you're seeing, you'll see in some key cities in the United States, Republican politicians all of a sudden supporting Democrat politicians. For why? They're not following the mob anymore. They're not following the party line anymore. They decide, we had Nancy Reagan the other day do the absolutely unpardonable sin, according to Ronald. She badmouthed the Republican, Ollie North. What's going on? And when people try to say, oh, well, that's because, but it's happening all over the place now. It happened in New York, well, Giuliani supported Cuomo, but then all of a sudden it happens in California. And it's happening someplace else. What's going on? Don't you see what it is? It's Aquarius. People starting to think as individuals. They're not thinking like the system says they have to think. Watch it. Watch it spread. Watch it grow all over the place. And it's part of what's going on in the country that you live in here. So what is Aquarius? Aquarius, then, is the inner search for truth. That's what we're looking at. The inner search for truth, the movement into a new direction. Finding out who you are. Why you are here. What is your purpose? What has been the purpose of your life so far? Here we had this morning, you remember what happened this morning? As the people left Egypt, it said that God said he did not want them going near the Philistines because if they saw war, they would want to go back to Egypt. So even though the Exodus becomes a freedom from the bondage of the mind, the journey is far from over. The promised land is nowhere in sight. And even people who come and sit and maybe have a meditation, after a while they see something that distracts them from the purpose of their journey, and they're gone someplace else. They follow a different path. See, in this particular story we were talking about, it's kind of an Aquarian story. The pathway is set out, but you still have the ability to jump off that path and head into a different direction, and you see people doing it all the time. And what is unfortunately the outcome of that is they will never follow that pathway that has been prepared for them and for you to this quote-unquote promised land. They will go off by themselves following a trail, and just as you see in the movies, they'll run into an ambush. Pow! They'll run into an ambush and somebody will get hurt. We've been charting our own course for years and years and years, and wars and bombs have flown. So now you have this new thing which says this is the way. This is the way. So what happened to the people who left this morning when we were talking about this Exodus? Where did God say they had to go? Into the wilderness. Into the wilderness. And you know, you can see, Albert, it is just as if it is being reenacted today as what happened in the Bible when they were in the wilderness. This isn't going right. I don't like this. I don't like that. This isn't the way we should be doing it. And before you know it, there's more trouble in the wilderness. And they said, we should have gone back to Egypt. People cannot understand the power that is latent and inherent within them, and unless something happens right away. You see, here you have a situation where you have the law of gravity. This will disappear from your picture. There it goes. But what happens? Somebody overcomes the law of gravity by putting an engine on this thing and some wings, and it flies. But it couldn't overcome the law of gravity unless someone knew of the existence of the law of aerodynamics. In the same way, before you can overcome the problems of the mind, you have to understand that the problems that you have are from your own mind. Otherwise, what do? We're looking at everybody else who's the source of our problems, and we never look at ourselves. And so we're always running to somebody else to heal me. And that's the one thing that, you know, I have a lot of problem with in religion. It's always look to somebody else to heal you. And in Jesus, what did he say? He said, physician, heal yourself. Because it's within you where the problem is. It's not somebody else doing it. And the problem is healed by understanding Aquarius. The problem is healed by understanding Exodus and moving out of the bondage of the mind. And what does it require of you? It requires of you that you discipline yourself in your meditation. Is the mind the enemy? This is one thing. If you have the Bible, then you should open the Bible and see where does all the source of the problems come from. Romans 8, verse 7, page 924 if you have one. Romans chapter 8 and verse 7. And what does it say? It says in Romans chapter 8, verse 7, the carnal mind is enmity against God. It is not subject to the law of God, neither can it be. There's your problem. That's it. And this is the point. The electromagnetic fields of Aquarius impact the mind in a different way than Pisces. And so they start stimulating the mind, and the mind changes. In the same way, if you attach a little electrode to a mouse's head, it'll start chasing a cat around, you know, if you throw a switch. This thing triggers the mind and people start acting differently. I saw a TV show the other night. I was doing a Halloween show, and they had goblins and people were seeing ghosts and all of this stuff. And they had a scientist on. The scientist said, well, I am not given to believe in ghosts, but I'll tell you this much. There are electromagnetic fields, and these electromagnetic fields do impact on the mind, the brain. Indeed they do, and as they start to find out just how much, they'll all be in a shock, because this is the source of things, and this is the way that the human mind is connected to that which is the bosom, if you would, of God through the electromagnetic fields. Okay? So Romans 8:7 says the mind is the problem. And of course, the mind is split into two sides, the left and the right hemisphere, which is the left and the right hemisphere of the brain. And what does Jesus say that you got to do? Cast your net to the right side. Cast your net to the right side and you will find. Now, you can get into many occult things as to what prophecies, but I've read some prophecies of what is supposedly to come during the Aquarian age, and I think it's interesting that the ancients prophesied that people will eventually meet on the physical plane, but prior to that will meet on the spiritual plane. In their meditations and their vibrations, they will unite and see each other. It's amazing to me to think that sometimes as I have meditated, I have actually seen human faces of people that I have no knowledge of ever seen before. I remember one time in this meditation, I actually saw people sitting in a hall. And I could make out the type of clothes they had on. I could make out the type of hairdos the women. It was amazing. It was just like I had intruded on this thing. But then I thought, well, is this wild? Somebody in that dimension, those people are meditating and seeing us. I wonder who that is. Why? Because now you've moved in a frequency of the mind into a different frequency, and you're starting to see things that you normally can't see. One of the things that I think in the prophecy of Aquarius that's going to be beautiful is that people will not dwell on race or nationality, because it's an individual thing. When you start saying, are you a Jew, or are you a Protestant, or are you a Catholic, or are you a Buddhist, or are you Italian, or are you German, or are you Filipino, the slate gets wiped off, and everybody is nothing. There is nothing. There is just people, human beings, people. That's Aquarius. You are what you are because you are an individual human being. It has no regard. We have built our whole tribal mentality on the basis of what tribe you were born to, which has nothing to do with you at all. It's an accident. You're part of this tribe because you plopped out somewhere in some hospital. What did you have to do with it? I'm proud to be an American. What did you have to do with this? You plopped there. There you were. You could have plopped into some Swahili desert somewhere and say, I'm proud to be a Swahili. What are you going to say about it? So then we get to the point where everybody, animal, human, nature, is one. And that's the part of Aquarius. No race, no group, no chosen people, obviously, other than that we know are those who camp on the right side. And that's what the chosen people will be. God's chosen people then in Aquarius will not be a race or a nationality, but power will be vested in the heart. Power will be vested in the heart, and humanity will be recognized as chosen. I sometimes wish, we were very close this morning to, I don't know if you could sense it, but I thought we were very close to touching. I'm even thinking maybe next, and I'm not saying this to get people to come here because there's so few here, but I'm even thinking maybe next Sunday. I just have a feeling about it. Because we go to the Red Sea Sunday. And I felt we came very close to a touch this morning, and maybe when the Red Sea parts next Sunday, it'll be something. And I'm probably, it's hard for you to understand, what the heck is he talking about? But I felt it. It's an amazing thing when sometimes I can sense what I have to do, and when I feel, when you flow and you know that the message is coming from someplace higher and an authority is speaking, just close your eyes and talk. Just close your eyes, because if you have your eyes open, you're then distracted by the physical aspects of our existence. But when you close your eyes and everything is gone, then you give your mouth and lips and vocal cords over to this entity, and then let the words flow. I feel very confident with that coming out of these ancient scriptures. It's an exciting time. I feel quite excited about the Red Sea, and I hope, let's see. Well, I shouldn't hope. I shouldn't expect anything, but, who knows? You see all of these changes, and I know how you feel. Say, oh, well, we've seen the Berlin. I remember a time, Albert, when they said that wall will never come down. When it went down, it's gone. Nobody even remembers it was there. If anybody had told anybody that the Soviet Union would be disintegrated as what it was, that is the most ridiculous thing in the world. Gone. Gone. And Nelson Mandela had his prison suit on and he's chopping rocks. And he's the president of South Africa. Apartheid is gone. It's impossible. All of these things are impossible. And yet you're seeing these things. And here you got the president of Israel shaking hands with Yasser Arafat. I saw last night on television, they were doing a comedy routine about Yasser Arafat. His wife is a very pretty lady. She got blonde hair. And he comes out with this thing on his head, Al Vero, and she comes out and she's saying, Yasser, he's my baby, Yasser, he's my... But I said, you know, this is great. What the heck is going on? But this is it. And everybody sits here. These if there's this physical God somewhere, he's sitting here, so what the hell are these people going to wake up? Can't they see what's going on? And they still don't believe it. And it's true. It is true. If Jesus walked through the door, they'd shoot him. I mean, they would the guy would be nuts. The second coming, are you crazy? Nobody pays any attention. All of this stuff is happening. You're sitting in the middle of it, and they're still in church with this maniac talking about Armageddon and all of this stuff. No, and they haven't seen anything. It all happened. They don't even discuss it. It's amazing. So you see these changes, but you still wonder about Aquarius. What will it take to fulfill the dream for you? Well, the key to fulfilling the dream for you in Aquarius is the one we talked of a little while ago, Uranus. I don't know if you know this, but the New Testament was translated out of the Greek. And in the New Testament, Jesus says the kingdom of heaven is at hand. The word for heaven in Greek is Uranus. If you look at the original Greek, it says the kingdom of Uranus is at hand. This is an amazing thing. Nobody knows. This thing's up in the sky. Nobody pays a bit of attention to it. They're waiting for some guy on a horse. Maybe it's a reincarnation of, what was that horse? I thought that horse was a terrific horse, that big red horse. What was that horse that won all the races? He chased, nobody could catch him. Who was the horse? Secretary. You remember that? That was the most magnificent, thanks, most magnificent horse that ever lived. Every race he won by 100 lengths. They could never come near catching that horse. He's coming back, I'll bet you he'll be the one. Secretariat coming down the stretch. Why doesn't somebody, how do you tell anybody, Albert? Who do you tell? Can't, the kingdom was at hand. So now, we're going to see the return of the Son of Man, the return of the Son of God. Look in your dictionary. Look it up. Webster's the guy's name. You know what the Uranus is called? Son of Man. It's in the dictionary. You don't have to look, you don't have to go to the library. Get a dictionary. You can get one off the shelf somewhere. Uranus is Son of Man. Heaven. It's the return. He's the bridegroom coming back to claim his bride. Don't you know who Uranus was married to? The earth, Gaia. Coming back to claim his bride. The whole Bible is astrology. Who's kidding anybody? That's great. I love to do it. You know why I love to do that? Because it shakes people up. I mean, that wouldn't be fair just to do it, but it's true. That's the great part. That's the great part. I don't care what anybody, Webster's Dictionary, anybody can get Webster's Dictionary. You don't have to be a genius to read Webster's Dictionary. Huh? So the key is Uranus. Now, I want you to think of your life. I'm going to tell you some of the astrological things that happens when Uranus enters Aquarius. Okay? These are some of the things, and I am not an astrologer, so I really don't understand this stuff about, you know, the sign of the 7th and the 11th and the transit and all this stuff. I don't know about that stuff, but, you know, I can read some of these things, and I thought it might be interesting. You think about your life, and this is what Uranus is supposed to do when it goes into Aquarius. Liberation from all conditioning patterns. A fundamental detachment from the emotional involvement in existing patterns. In other words, they don't excite you anymore. They're not as important to you as they used to be. Is that happening in your life? Uranus in the 11th house, which is Aquarius, emphasized the individual's sense of being very different. Somehow misplaced from the group. Don't fit in anymore. Yeah, that's it, all right. Don't fit in anymore. An awareness of not fitting sends people seeking other like-minded people, you know, which I guess is true, is what we would do. So then you have a new social bonding that takes place among people. And this also causes disruptions of families. And what did Jesus say? I have not come but with a sword to separate mother and daughter, and father is going to be... Because those who plug into this are saying, your system, there's something wrong with it. And those who don't plug into it are screaming that the system must go on to forever, so there's a problem. Uranus in Aquarius brings freedom from the known. Now, this is an interesting thing. See if this attaches to you. I know it does to me. People begin to find their own new values to reflect the essence of inherent individuality. So, in other words, your values are no longer the values of the society or the religion. They are now the values that are coming from the spirit within you. And you live, and according to these new values, it's like they say, you know, remember, he marches to the beat of a different drummer. Uranus moving through Aquarius means rapidly changing times. A groundswell occurs. Now this is, I think, pretty much where we're talking about in countries and nations. A groundswell occurs among all kinds of people demanding fundamental change in social and political realities. Revolutions occur. Uranus causes people to become overtly rebellious to the existent structures. And this is the one I think a lot of you will like. Uranus brings a more equitable distribution of material wealth. The old order weakens and falls. The new order rises, such as Uranus in Aquarius. It's a real interesting thing. Real quick, as we wrap it up, so those of you who may not know this, but this, in the Bible, you have Jesus, Jehoshua, portrayed as the bridegroom, okay? And he's coming back for his bride, who is us, the people, okay? Now, when you understand that Jesus is a conscious aspect and his return is for our conscious aspect, you then have that which is the physical embracing that which is the feminine spiritual principle. So you're then going to have a consummation of the wedding with the spiritual, which even Jesus, even though he's a man, is a feminine principle of spirit being intercoursed with that which is the male, which is the physical part of us. So then this communion or this union is made, and this is what they call the marriage supper of the Lamb. Okay. Once again, that lamb is significant. Jesus is called the Lamb because he is the Son. Okay? And the Son intercourses with the Lamb, which is Aries, and you know we have spring and summer and so forth and so on. Now, what's interesting about that is that's the story. Jesus is coming back as the bridegroom to claim his bride. Now, even though we're male, okay, we're considered the bride, if we are male. Now, this is what's interesting. In the sky, the part of us is played by the earth, Gaia. And of course, she is Mother Earth. She definitely is, she's the mother in this particular case. The part of Jesus is played as a male in this case by Uranus. And Uranus was married to Gaia, and they had children, but one of the children they had was Saturn. Now, you'll recognize Saturn in your Bible under the name of Satan. Saturn, gets a sickle and goes after Uranus and castrates Uranus. What's happening there is now Uranus can no longer bring the seed, the heavenly seed, to the earth. So that we're cut off from God, so to speak. We're cut off from heaven, because Uranus means heaven. We're cut off from the Son of Man, because Uranus means the Son of Man. We're all alone now, okay? All we have is that which is the earth, and it's controlled by Saturn. Now, Satan. But now this is interesting, because this is legitimately an astronomical fact. Saturn was dominating, and it fostered the competitive aspects of life and so forth and so on. But along comes Venus, which means love, comes out of the ocean, which is the depths of God's love, and with the aid of the Cyclops, which is the single eye. Do you ever see the Cyclops? They got one eye in the middle of the forehead. Overthrows Saturn. Cast Saturn out of heaven. In the book of Revelation, you'll see that it says, and Michael with his angels cast Satan out of heaven. Well, once Saturn is cast out of heaven, now Uranus can come back. So Uranus is coming back to claim his bride, Gaia, which is the earth. So this is the return of the bridegroom. This is the return of the Son of Man for his bride, which is Gaia. And guess what? As they come back together, guess where this happens? In Aquarius, the place of the waterman. And do you remember? What did Jesus do in the place of the... He changed the water into wine. It was the wedding. Don't you remember? Okay. So this is what's happening. So it's all acted out. So now Uranus comes back to claim his bride. The bridegroom is coming back for the bride. Okay. So Jesus is coming back for his church. It's all astronomy. It's all astrological. It's all cosmological. But get this. What does it say in the Bible? It says in the book of Revelation that Satan, that old devil, is cast out for a time. But after 1,000 years, he will come back out and cause more trouble. Exactly. Uranus will dominate in the Aquarian age for 1,000 years. And then its effect will start to go away, and guess whose effect will start to be in? Saturn will come back. The whole... What the heck is this? No, this is all cosmological. It's all astronomical. It's all astrology. It's all in the universe. But even these names, Saturn, Uranus, Gaia, all of this stuff is simply named so that you can identify the movement of these heavenly bodies and what's happening. And so the movement of these heavenly bodies are given the name of Jesus and Michael and all of this stuff and put into this book, but it describes this thing that's going on. And it has a tremendous electrical impact on the minds of people. Much different in Aquarius than was in the others. So this is what's trying to be conveyed to you. So that's it. And so that's why when we talk about the Son of Man returning to claim his bride, the bridegroom is coming back for his bride, it's a fact. But it doesn't belong to be studied in a church. You should go to some college, into a planetarium, and talk to them about it. The dominant planet, Uranus, coming back for Gaia, and they're not going to know about all of the influences with Jesus and all of this business, but this is a fact. This is, in this great zodiacal pattern of the movement of the planets, this is what's happening. And so somebody takes this story of heavenly bodies, puts it in a book, gives it some names, and we don't even look at the origin of it. We read it in the Bible, and we're waiting for this guy to come back on a white horse, Secretariat, and save everybody. See? And then you've missed it. It's just like this morning. The lamb is killed at Passover, so what do? We've got to kill a sheep or something. Not ever even thinking. Why? Why kill the lamb? For what purpose? Why? What is that going to do for anybody, killing lambs? It doesn't do anything. The lamb is Aries. And Aries is consumed in the fire of the sun. And when that happens, there's the Passover from winter to summer. That's what the whole thing's about. Nothing else. Nothing else. All the rest of it's a bunch of nonsense. And you know something, when you think of it, that's the way it would have to be. Because it's sense. It's nature. It has a purpose. It has a reason. The sun goes up there, and winter gives way to spring and summer. Okay. And then inside of you, the solar plexus energy goes up to the pineal, which is Aries, and the cold winter of your life gives way to the spring and summer, a new life. Makes sense to me. But what do we have? We have a bunch of people saying, God said, kill this thing and smear the blood on the door, and the angel, and I won't go in and kill everybody in your house. And so we couldn't deal with that story. He changed it to Easter, jelly beans, bonnets, and Bing Crosby on the avenue. Oh, gee. Anyhow, that's what's going on. And I thought you would enjoy seeing it. So hang on to this thing. You don't have to be an astrologer, but you should know that the month of the zodiac, a cosmic month, is in the process of changing, and it is Aquarius, and it is filled with exciting things. You know, people who do know what it does to the earth, in the same way that you could sit down with some people who know the movements of the earth and the winds and so forth, can tell you what happens in the solar system and how it affects our weather. Well, if it affects the weather, what do you think it does to your head? So, okay, we'll see you. Bye.